Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the AI for Good Global Summit. All year, always online. I'm Charlotte Kahn from the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union. The ITU is the United Nations Specialized Agency for ICTs, and we're also the organizers of the AI for Good Global Summit alongside the X Prize Foundation, in partnership with over 35 UN sister agencies, the ACM, and co-convened with Switzerland. The goal of the summit is to identify practical applications of AI to advance the Sustainable Development Goals and scale those solutions for global impact. Like most of the world, the AI for Good Global Summit has gone digital with weekly online programming, allowing us to reach even more people in 2020. Earlier, I was joined by Vicki Hanson from New York. She is the CEO of the Association of Computing Machinery. Hello, Vicki.
Hello. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, Vicki, what would you like the outcome of the summit to be this year? A very troubled year with this pandemic.
Yeah. The mission for the AI for Good Summit's always been about bringing together the world's top AI technologists with leaders working in the front lines of global challenges. It'll be interesting to see what happens this year with the COVID pandemic. And in many ways, I think that this pandemic has maybe brought a lot of the world's people more together to solve particular problems, realizing that we are all in this together. And as always, I'm excited to see that the people in the summit are here from many different nations. They involve many different skills. They have many different skills. They have many different experiences. And I always think this is a huge strength of the summit. And I'm looking forward to these people all working together, finding new ways of solving some of the problems that are most pressing for our world today.
Yes, that's right. So it makes it all the more important to have this platform for international dialogue to discuss themes such as AI and ethics.
Yeah. One of the things is that great ideas just aren't confined to national borders, and it's really important that we have people working together, scientists and technology leaders, people who are from government, all coming together from around the world to share their ideas, and the researchers to share their findings, and the research talk to each other. In fact, part of the thing is that the history of innovation is not a history with a lone scientist working alone in their room late at night, that kind of a thing. That's basically a myth. Basically, the real breakthroughs in science come together from teams working together. And through this summit, we can have teams that are not only local, but teams that cross national borders. And I just want to say, as an example of teams working together, ACM's recent recognition of Yoshua Bengio, Jeffrey Hinton, and Jan LeCun as the Turing laureates from last year for their work on AI algorithms is an example of people working together. They did work, some as individuals, the three of them worked together, but then they also worked with people that they met in conferences, and it was a completely international collaboration for them. I also want to say that another thing that's important about this international platform, as you're saying, is that we can really do a multidisciplinary approach. I think that that is the crucial thing for science these days. The problems that we have are so big that they're not going to be solved by researchers in any one domain. So take, for example, issues of healthcare. You might, for a particular healthcare problem, have people working in data science and computer architecture, as well as medical doctors, all collaborating together to find a solution. And also the idea of the international dialogue is that hopefully people will work together to develop good ethics standards. This is something that has to be done in a very international way. Certainly, we all are aware that AI can be used for many good things, but there's also the potential to not be used for such good things. And this will only be solved if people around the world are working together to develop ethical standards for use of AI for social good.
And so far, Vicki, what is the most memorable thing you have seen at the summit?
Okay, here I'm going to point to one of ACM's keynote talks. This was given by Shwetak Patel a few weeks ago. His talk was about mobile technologies for healthcare, and particularly he was focusing on COVID-19. He's using a combination of smartphones and the devices that are built inside them, along with AI, to look at new possibilities for early diagnosis of COVID. He and his collaborators and students have developed groundbreaking innovations, just in general, looking at mobile technologies and how they can be used for healthcare. And specifically with COVID, what he did was take some earlier work that he had done on using sound detectors for cough and applying that to COVID, given that a cough is one of the symptoms of COVID-19. So it's just an example of how some very simple technologies that many people around the world already have can be used as an early indicator of this pandemic. And I just want to say one other thing while I'm talking here. On September 29th, there will be a second ACM keynote given by Yoshua Bengio, who I just mentioned. And he's also going to be talking about his AI work on COVID-19. He's going to be talking about work from his lab that's looking at AI techniques for COVID detection and treatment.
Fantastic, some great examples of AI for good. What are the other applications of AI in health maybe that you are currently getting quite excited about?
Okay, well, my own background, so I'm going to talk from my personal experience in this case. My own background's in the development of inclusive technology for people with disabilities. And given this, I'm excited that a lot of the tools that have been developed for AI for other purposes are being adapted to help people who experience disability. So I want to preface these comments by saying that in the world, there are 1 billion people who experience either one or more disabilities. I don't think that people often realize just how many people in the world are affected by disability. And technology in general and AI in particular are being used to help eliminate some of the barriers that are experienced by these people. So for example, people with disability are using robotic techniques to, in some cases, augment mobility, to help with physical rehabilitation, and to help in performing tasks of daily living. Also, speech recognition technologies are being used by people with physical disabilities to help control devices. Computer vision techniques are being used to help people with vision loss to be better aware of objects in their environment, as well as to interact with and navigate with their environment. So just in short, I just wanted to say that a lot of the AI technologies that are being developed for other purposes we can think about ways to adapt them to help people with disabilities also.
Absolutely. And finally, Vicki, of course, many discussions at the AI for Good Global Summit are centered around ethics. So what's your own take on it? I mean, what's your vision for AI developed in the most ethical way possible?
Let me just start by saying that universal codes of ethics are going to be very important, and I mentioned this before, so I'll go back to that. ACM has a code of ethics and professional conduct that's considered the gold standard, really. The beginning of the code of ethics starts out by saying, computing professionals' actions change the world. And I think that's a very important statement coming from the computing professionals. It somehow, I'm not sure that people realize just what a big impression people have as computer scientists. It goes on to say that to act responsibly, computing professionals should reflect on the wider impacts of their work, consistently supporting the public good. So this is a good starting point, I think, for work in AI, to consider the long-term consequences of the ethics of what they'll be doing and looking at how it will serve the public good. And public policy is also going to be very important in terms of having ethical uses of AI. ACM has a technology policy council with very active committees in Europe and the United States. One of the issues, though, with technology policy councils, we all know that emerging technologies develop at a very rapid rate and legislation and regulation develop at a much slower rate. So we need to figure out a way to try and reduce that gap a bit. But in this, we need all technologists to come and help and try and work with policymakers to figure out how to fully regulate, well, maybe not fully, how to regulate AI for the good of all. And this is one of the reasons for efforts such as the AI for Good Summit, because we don't want to make policies that apply only to one country or to another. We need these ethical statements to apply to development all over the world.
Absolutely, you need a global approach. Thank you very much, Vicki.
Thank you.